So good morning, everyone. We are now slowly still rising in numbers, but we will start so we can keep with our schedule. My name is Jelena Dumicic, and I am an independent advisor at the International Affairs Sector at the Croatian Chamber of Economy. And I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Laura. I think now I can share my screen, right? Okay. 1 second, we'll just do it like this. Yes. So I will just take a few minutes to briefly tell you about the activities and services that the Croatian Chamber of Economy provides for our members for in the internationalization of the businesses. So the Chamber has a very long tradition, and we are an independent business institution that helps and represents the interests of Croatian companies both in Croatia and abroad. In terms of business with China, I have to stress out that we have a representative office in Shanghai, and Mr. Dražen Holmik, who is also here today with us, is always there to help you with any questions you have specific for Chinese markets. Through our associations, and which we have more than 60 of them, we provide different activities and include companies to discuss business and promote business. In terms of variety of activities and services are available, but the international affairs sector usually focuses on the internationalization of business. And in that sense, we used to have a lot of events live in person, but with this pandemic that happened, we quite well transitioned to online activities. Even before the pandemic, the Croatian Chamber of Economy started with the digitalization of our services, because this is the way how future will evolve. So we have a digital chamber that most of the services are available for our members to get information about them and to click and use them. In our international affairs sector, because as I mentioned, we had a lot of outgoing and ingoing delegations and a lot of business meetings that were happening in person. With the pandemic, we started our Go Global, Go Virtual platform, which actually allows for B2B meetings with specific companies. Other than that, we also have a lot of some specific activities and services, some more general. So I would invite everyone to contact us, because we can help you with either finding potential partners, with providing you with country-specific informations, helping you with your work in Europe through our Enterprise Europe network that the Chamber is part of. And I would like to just stress out that we have this new service, actually a product called Fit for Globe, where we provide detailed analysis on specific sectors and possibilities for export of products to specific countries. This analysis is done through different information and different data that we collected from several sources. I have put this short presentation together, and Laura will send this to you after the event, so you can click on each information that interests you. I have put hyperlinks, so it will take you directly to acquire more information for anything that is of your interest. And I would just like to thank our colleagues from the EU SME Centre and our lecturer today, Mr. Jimenez, for their involvement in our webinar today. We have been cooperating for many years, and we have organized many events even before. As you can see in our internationalization, we have dealt with many institutions that are funded by the EU that help European companies to internationalize. And just once again, thank you for joining us. For any questions you might have, we stand at your disposal. And I will give word now to Rafael to start with his, or maybe first to Laura, and then to Laura to introduce the center shortly, and then Rafael afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elena, for the presentation. Yes, I'm going to take a few minutes from Rafael's presentation to introduce the EU SME Centre for those who haven't heard about us before. It won't take much time. The EU SME Centre is a European Union initiative that starts in 2010. So it's already 11 years that we are working in order to help European SMEs to enter the Chinese market. We are an official member of Enterprise Europe Network, the same as the Croatian Chamber of Economy. We work with a lot of business support organizations, both in Europe and China, to reach to those European SMEs that are looking into the Chinese market and that are in need of supporting services such as the ones we provide. In terms of services, I'm going to explain you a little bit of what we do, but in general terms, we try to train companies in order to ensure that they are fully prepared to face the Chinese market and successfully sell their products in there. We have a local office in Beijing. Me, myself, I'm based in Brussels, thanks to Eurochambres, which is one of the implementing partners, together with the other four that you can see at the bottom of this slide, which are the Italian Chamber of Commerce China, China Trade and Business Council, the Danish China Chamber of Commerce, and the European Chamber of Commerce in China. In terms of services, very briefly, we have 4 main services available for business support organizations and for SMEs in Europe. The first one is the Knowledge Center. I usually like to call it online library. Here you can find over 200 market reports, guidelines, case studies, and articles related to different China-related topics. For instance, artificial intelligence, how to find business partners in China, how to work with partners, anything related to food and beverage, including specific subsectors such as the meat industry, wine, or dairies, and other topics that are more transversal, for instance, cross-border e-commerce, such as the topic we are touching today. The second service is called Advice Center, and here we actually have 2 services. The first one is actually our newest service or tool. This is an online quiz. Well, in theory, there are 5, 1 general and 4 specific, that allows companies to assess the level of readiness towards the market. It only takes 10 minutes for the general quiz and 5 for the specific ones. And the system at the end will tell the participant how far they are from ideal to enter the Chinese market, making reference to some of our market reports, of the content of the website, but also making reference to other China-related projects, such as the China IP SME Help Desk that Delina also mentioned before. Within the Advice Center, we also provide confidential and one-to-one consultation services to companies. Here you can ask any questions related to business development, HR, standards and conformity, e-commerce, etc. Normally, our experts will reply to your questions between 2 or 3 working days, and here you can ask as much as you want. The third service is the training center. Well, today is a very good example of what we offer in here. In collaboration with business support organizations in Europe and in China, we organize trainings to plug the knowledge and skill gaps of the SMEs that are looking into the Chinese market. I invite you to check our website because we have quite a lot of upcoming events, and also our YouTube channel to revisit or rewatch some of the webinars that we have already recorded. Obviously, and due to the situation right now, all of our events, at least in Europe, have been shifted online. But hopefully, as soon as the situation gets closer to normal, we will be able to start traveling around Europe as we did before and provide presential and offline workshops. Sorry. And the last but not least is our advocacy platform. Here we try to give voice to the concerns and the requests of the EU SMEs that are operating in China or intend to operate. Here we have created the Chamber SME Working Group together with the European Chamber of Commerce China, where actually we try to keep informed SMEs about any updates on the regulatory, economic, or social environment in China. Briefly on our upcoming events, next week we have another webinar on Chinese due diligence on Chinese partners. Upcoming events also at the beginning of June, 3 events on 1 day. Yes, we are quite active recently. Digitalization in the water sector, circular economy also in the water sector, and updates on the cosmetic policy that happened recently. And on the 9th of June, we are going to be touching again another food and beverage related topic, which is the dairy sector. I want to share with you a couple of initiatives that we are implementing right now. The first one is a call for proposals for successful stories of SMEs that are selling in China or have been selling in China during the COVID. We are looking for companies that have managed to navigate the difficulties and sell into China through the implementation of a new touch to their approach. Could be digitalization, could be new technology, could be targeting a new sales group, anything. We are now receiving quite some proposals from different SMEs. If you are interested and would like to participate, we welcome you. The idea is to gather 5 companies from different sectors and with different approaches and put them together in a webinar that will take place on the 14th of October, where the companies will have 15 minutes to introduce their company, their business, and their strategy into China. And the last one, we are gonna be participating in the China International Industry Fair, which is actually the China's biggest national fair. And we are gonna be promoting an European pavilion. We are gonna support 40 European SMEs from Europe and, well, the European Union and COSME participating countries that operate in clean tech, energy saving, industry cleaning, labor safety, and industrial accessories. It could be that the companies are already operating in China or they are not. Both are available for us. And we are trying to recruit companies right now. The pavilion will look, as you can see right now on the slide. There will be some areas for meetings and gatherings and also for conference that will be supported by the EU SME Centre. And also here you have some information about the small goods that we will be offering to the companies that want to participate. And a couple of technical things before we start with Rafa. Please, all the questions that you have along the webinar, do not wait until the end to submit them. Use the Q&A button that you can see here on the screen to submit them. And at the end, I will manage with Rafa to handle all of them and to try to give answer to all your thoughts. Do not worry if we don't have enough time, we will be able to come back to you afterwards by email. And you can use the chat function for any kind of exchange between the participants or with us if you need it. And now I'm very happy to leave the floor to Rafa, not without thanking the Croatian Chamber of Economy for the support today, and also Enterprise Estonia, because it's actually the employer of Rafa right now, and they make him available for today's participation. Thank you very much. Rafa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will stop your presentation and I will share this one, which I hope you can see now on the screen. Let me know, Laura.
Yes.
Yes, it works well.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much to the people listening. I know well the European Union SME Centre because I worked there for years. And I know well, I would say, not all, but most of the chambers in European Union. Both institutions are fundamental for you because they play an important role. In the case of China, they will guide you and they will help you to understand what is China. Today's presentation, for those that don't know me, well, you have a small bio here. And I work now for Estonia government in the equivalent of what every European Union member state has, which is a trade agency. So, and I take responsibility for China. Okay, I write about China and about trade. If you want to subscribe to a free newsletter which only talks about China and trade, you're welcome. And I think I can answer today most of your questions, and if not, I will look for the answer. But one of the problems with China is that you want to jump into doing something without understanding first clearly why China does the thing it does. And if you understand why they do the thing they do, you will be much more comfortable later taking your own decisions to export to China and knowing why the things are the way they are. this is never explained and confused, and I have a lot of experience on this, confuses the companies. Why is this? So I will guide you today throughout where are they now in terms of economy and what is the role of this. And then we will jump into what's in it for you for cross-border e-commerce. You will be surprised by some things. And again, we will finish with the free trade zone. We will talk about the procedure, which would require one full day, but you will understand, which is the important thing. And also EU SME Centre has fully documented what is the procedure. So it's a document to read. So I wanted to share where China economy is now in May 2021. And yes, you will receive the presentation and the graphs. Except one picture, the graphs are mine. So you can do with them whatever you want. The sources are public sources. So you can trust this accurate. China is going back to the proven old recipes. They claim we are changing this and this and that, but then with COVID, they prefer to return to the things they know work well. It's not what they wanted. They wanted to do other things, but so far in the meantime, they are doing what they were doing. And you need to understand this because sometimes there is a difference between the message and the reality. And well, they have decided that they need now money. And some things, although they do not say publicly, can be a little bit postponed. That's the reality. That's what the numbers say. So one thing they want to do is keeping the supply side at full steam. I mean, the factories. And why is this? This is the reason. They need to keep employment at all costs. So whether the world needs or not what they produce, they need to keep the factories because not the factories themselves, but because employment. That could be a topic of unrest in China. They have 9 million people coming from university every single year. So next month, 9 million more of people looking for a job. Bachelors, people from college, graduated. So it's 9 million. You imagine in the terms we are thinking in Europe. So 9 million is a very important number. That is the number of graduates that will finish this year. So they need to keep the supply side working. Otherwise, they cannot employ all those people. That's the main reason. Do they have success? Well, yes and no. In some sectors they have, in others they don't have, because the transition from an economy which is low-level industries or high-intensive industries in terms of workforce is not easy. So in the Northeast, they have serious problems because that was the place where they started with those industries that are not modern industries anymore, and to reconvert those people to services is not easy. There are more problems, and I want to talk on behalf of the European Union now, is we noticed we were expecting China to import more, and that means that the demand side, the consumers should be spending more, so they import more and we export more. That is not happening. It's not happening for the time being. I'm not saying will not happen more. And we noticed, because with the whole world in crisis, when China has a surplus, the surplus of China is the deficit of the rest of the world, right? So somehow we, all the countries, we should take our fair part in the effort. And if only one is having a surplus, of course they can say, look to me, we are like this, doing things well, even we have a surplus. Well, to some extent, that means that your recovery is paid by us. So economists are noticing this is not what they planned. I tell you, they actually plan not to have any surplus by 2021. If you look into the reports 4 years ago, they thought the following: what we need is to import more for 2 reasons, because our consumers want more things, point 1. Point 2, we need more complex things to upgrade our supply chain. We need machinery, we need electronics, we need the chips, we need this and that. So those were the plans. And the plans were, if I import more, there will be a moment where I will not have a surplus. They were not scared, because an economy like China with a balanced trade could work perfectly. But this didn't happen. Okay, so this is what's happening now is not what they planned. So this, going back to proven old recipes, is first maintaining a high level of surplus, which they didn't plan this 4 years ago. And you can see what happens in the last 10 years. So they were here in 2015, the top of surplus at that year. And this is when they started to import more, to keep in a lower surplus. Still quite a surplus, of course. And here they change. And I will explain you why they change. It's not for COVID, okay? So you can see that this is, I calculated for you, this is a 15% growth every year in average since 2010. It's fantastic, right? But you can see that there was this peak and then a change, and then the change again upwards. So they maintain a high level of surplus, and they go the old way, which is any opportunity for massive exports, they try to seize the opportunity, which is what China does the best, massive manufacturing. This is another example I picked up for you. I'm sure you have seen these things across European Union cities or United States, everywhere. Those are the units exported in Q1 in 2021. So to European Union, more than 1 million of these things. And to United States, also more than 1 million. So this is what China used to do, the best in the world, and still they do it. They are doing it. I mean, there is not much mystery in manufacturing this. It's just a traditional scooter with some battery. Not big deal, right? But they do cheap. And this is what they do better. They would be preferring doing complex machinery for semiconductors, but they need to keep what? The supply chain for what? For the employment. So they are on this still. So this is the situation today. And they also need to maintain a high level of surplus. Why? Because the yuan, the currency they have, is not a convertible currency. I mean, the value of the euro depends on the market. It's a currency like an orange, and there are oranges from the Americans, which is the dollar, and from the Japanese, which is the yen, etc., the sterling pound. And one day the euro has one exchange rate, and the next day has a different exchange rate. So the market puts the value of the euro. The value of the yuan is not put by the market. It's put by what they want to have as value of the yuan. They cannot keep this long time. But to control the value of the yuan, you need to have foreign currency in reserves. They need to sell or to purchase other currencies to maintain the yuan within the values they think is the best for the country. And this costs a fortune. And the only way to have that fortune is to have a surplus. To some extent, they have been, let me say this carefully, lucky. Why? Because although in products they have a high surplus, I mean, they export much more than they import. In services, they have $500 billion deficit. Only intellectual property is some 40 billion of imports. Yes, every telephone made in China uses Android, right? So some cents of that telephone go to the owner of Android, which is Google, I believe. That is services. It's a license of intellectual property. So the massive expenditure they were having, which is money going out of the country, was what? Tourism. And with COVID, we didn't have any tourism for the last more than 12 months, right? So this contributed to have a good year exporting products and a good year not spending money on tourists abroad and no students because they could not travel. So all in all, they have been, let's say, lucky. I don't want to use this word because the whole world is under COVID and we are suffering everywhere, now India, for example. But from the business point of view, the circumstances of not tourists traveling has benefited the countries that were exporting tourists. And China was one of them, 120 million every year, including to Croatia, which is a beautiful country to visit. Okay? So they need to maintain a high level of surplus if they want to continue being able to I wouldn't say manipulate, because they are not in any list of manipulators now, to, let's say, control the currency value. Okay? And again, problems is not what they thought. They had other plans. So the economy around 2018 and then with COVID is not what they planned, in my opinion. In 2013, in 2013, this is not what they thought. They wanted to upgrade the value chain 5 or 6 years ago. And they knew for that they would need to import more and to export more, but also to import more. And they thought the surplus would disappear, which they were not scared. But the situation is not what they planned. And I'm telling you the situation in May 2021. The second thing they wanted to keep the citizens happy, and I explain you later why, is to have a consumption upgrade. So the consumers in China would spend, I wouldn't say in more things, but in more quality things, which they don't have. Of course, if you go to Shanghai, you see everything there, but Shanghai is not all China. So they wanted the whole country to enjoy consumption. The things that people living in Shanghai or Beijing or Shenzhen, they enjoy that someone living in another place could enjoy, that consumption upgrade. Okay, that was the plan. And this is why upgrading the value chain and upgrading consumption, they expected that the current account in 2021 would be a small deficit, which is not a big deal. I mean, companies can be very happy with a small deficit. All right? But the thing is that they do not have a small deficit. What they have is an enormous surplus. This is, again, Cuba. We are talking here $1 billion. So 118 or something, 35, $150 billion in one quarter. You imagine the quantity of money. So this surplus is the deficit of someone else, for instance, us. Okay? So when I say that the numbers do not reflect what they say today, it's because it's true. They are using old recipes because they want to keep the foreign reserves as high as possible for what to be able to do what they need to do to keep the yuan at certain value. So this will make you understand the things that China does now. I want to say that it is not COVID. It all started before. This is the retail sales in China the people in China that follow my trade thing and the groups there know that we tracked this since 4 years ago. This is the growth of retail sales over the last 5 years. Let me say that you do not put too much attention on this slope, because still we are talking here about growths of 6 or 7%, and we do not have growths in retail sales of 6, 7, or 8% in Europe. So although you see this going down, don't get like, wow, these guys are not purchasing. Be careful, because even in the lowest thing here, when COVID, it was 2.5% increase per month, you see. But the reality is that consumers are more savvy in China. They want to make their choices better, and they are very prudent in average. And they are saving more. And this is a matter of concern also, because if they are saving more, they are spending less. And if they are spending less, that means that the country cannot trust fully that the consumption will pull up the economy. More reason for those in China that insist on using the old recipes to continue like the way they were 10 years ago. Let's go to factories. Let's create things, and the demand is not the problem. But they cannot do this for a long time. Also, solving the supply side for economists is always much easier than the demand side. To make a factory to produce, even if losing money, is always easier giving subsidies than to convince people to spend money from their own pockets. All right, I can tell you some things about this that demonstrate that the consumers are so far, last year and this year, saving more. So the summary now, May 2021, we are talking, is that they want to keep production working, reason, employment. They want to maintain a high surplus, reason, they need the money, the reserves, okay? And they are in the process of deciding if consumption is key or is not key. I mean, they have scholars of different opinions in China, like everywhere in the world. So there are scholars that believe we need to increase the demand, we need to have from consumers more expenditures, they need to have more money to spend, we need to dedicate less money to the factories and transfer to the households more money. This is school number one. And the school thought number two is, no, let's go the old recipes. So if you ask me, I don't know what will be the prevailing opinion 1 year from now. I believe that this is a temporary change. I believe, but I have no particular reason to. I see the numbers and they show me this is happening, but I don't know if there is a general agreement that is temporary or forever, or finally, again, they will jump into consumption. I expect they will, because at the end of the day, the citizens are not happy if they don't spend money. I mean, this is not China, it's you and me. We want to go to some hotel knowing that we can afford. We want to purchase this, purchase that. We want to send our sons to study abroad, this type of things. So why are we talking today about free trade zones and, how can I move this? Okay. And cross-border e-commerce. Why is relevant for you across Europe or in Croatia? And generally, it doesn't matter if you are a big company or a small or medium company. Because these two things, cross-border e-commerce and free trade zones, they are deeply linked to the choices that China has to open up the economy. They have very bad memories from the Cultural Revolution. And I would say, that's my opinion, that the lesson they learned is that they don't want experiments with 1 billion people. No way. If they want to make an experiment, they prefer to do it with a soft drink under a controlled environment where they can test some new ideas and see how they work. They have very bad memories when they tried to make experiments involving the whole population and everything went completely nuts. A disaster. So they want to open up doing a test. That's why they are trying things that take years, because they want to make sure that is what they expect. So free trade zones and cross-border e-commerce, we're talking about this because it's deeply linked to the possibility for us in Europe to make more business in China, which is not easy, but is quite rewarding. So according to Laura, we will respond at the end. So you send your questions and of course we will respond them. Let's talk first about cross-border e-commerce. First thing that always people ask me is, does it matter? But this existed before. And why is it so important now? And you're right. And I tell the people, yes, you're absolutely right. It existed before. But you need to understand what is the difference between these three things. It's fundamental, you understand, to understand why cross-border e-commerce. General trade is very easy to understand. We are in Croatia or in Estonia, we have apples, and we want to export apples. We put apples in a container, and we send the container to China. There is an importer. The importer picks up the container, hopefully pays us in Croatia or in Estonia or whatever. That is general trade. So it's just sending a finished product to a final destination, which in this case is China. This is what people usually understand by exports. And it's a large part of exports, about 2/3 for China. All right. But there is another thing called processing trade, where it's not that important for Europeans, but it's fundamental for China because it's something like a 35% or 30%. So it's like 1/3 of the total trade. Processing trade is not we have apples and we send the apples so Chinese can eat apples. Well, apples is a bad example because China is full of apples. Let's think about kiwis. Italians have a lot of kiwis. I say Italians because the leaders are the New Zealand, but I'm European, so I say Italians. Okay, so processing trade is not like sending kiwis from Italy to China. Processing trade is sending some pieces to China that finally they are used there to assembly with some of the pieces, produce a new component which is assembled from different pieces coming from different places and re-exporting somewhere. That is what is called processing trade. Okay, we will talk about cross-border trade after explaining something important regarding processing trade that you need to understand. There is a lot of people talking about, oh, we should decouple from China. There is an option. But before taking decision about you want to decouple from China or not, you need to know what is the trade mode of your country or your economic region. And if I look here, I prepared this for you. This graph usually is very difficult to find, so I did for you. This is Australia. If you take all the exports of Australia to China, almost all is general trade. That is, they put something in a container, they send to China, and that's it. Almost all, which is minerals. This, you realize that is not the same thing. The export can be 100 for Australia and for South Korea, but look how the exports are divided, split. Australia is all general trade. My minerals and a little wine, because they have problems with the wine and China, but I have to say that for the Australia government, the wine is like this. It means nothing compared with the minerals, okay? So Australia is all minerals, containers, ships, send the minerals, forget the minerals. And look, South Korea. South Korea, like the minerals, there is only less than 40%. The big majority of the trade of South Korea with China is, I send to you things, factories there do some operation with those materials, and then they are sent back somewhere else, probably back to South Korea. So when you say, I want to decouple, I mean, I want to delink myself from China, of whom you're talking about? What is the linking of Australia with China? I have minerals. If these guys, they don't want minerals, I will sell the minerals to someone else. But I do not have really any business in China, other than sending minerals. These guys are the opposite. They say, my main business is in China. I have factories there doing things with my staff. So maybe for these guys, it's not easy. I forget China. So when people says very easily in the headlines, I will decouple, well, of whom you talking about? United States, Australia, South Korea and Japan, Malaysia, or the European Union? I put here the average. So the average is that general trade is some 60%. So let's say 2/3, and 1/3 is processing trades, sending things, manufacturing with them, other things, sending somewhere else. This is the average for China. So countries doing more processing trade, all these guys. And also Japan, which is in the average. But if you take European Union, what we do is the typical export, which is good. It means we have kiwi, we have machines, we have this, we have that, we export to China, we have marmalades, food and beverage, agriculture, technology, whatever. This is what our trade shows. Compare. United States, all of this is those iPhones made in China and many other things. But look, European Union is a net general trade exporter. So really we do not have, compared with all of these, many things there. I mean, we do not have so much problems because we do not have to close and look for another place for a factory in big numbers, like it would happen to these guys if they don't have China tomorrow morning. So I want you to understand this because otherwise it's not easy to understand. These headlines we are watching every day in the newspapers, and you need to have for your plan of exports to China a clear plan, and also understand to whom you're selling. If you're selling to consumers, maybe you do not need a factory in China, and maybe you do not need even a company. You need an importer, or if you do cross-border, probably you don't even need an importer. We will check today. However, if you are sending things to China to manufacture there and then make it more complex and re-export back to your country, it's different. Or if you go to China to sell to another factory in China because you are a plastic factory and you will sell chemical products to other producers in China. So then you need to be in China, okay? So cross-border trade always existed, always. So when the people says, but this thing about cross-border, why is new? It's not new. This has been existed always between two border regions. There is always some sort of trade, which is a specific of that border. I live in Tallinn. the taxes, well, not the taxes, the excise over alcohol is substantially lower than in our neighbors Finland, because it's an option of each member state to decide the alcohol excise, how much they charge per alcoholic content to the alcohol which is sold in the country, because it's much higher in that side than here, and the two cities, two capitals are very close. There is a cross-border trade. People come here, not now, unfortunately. People come here for a weekend, and when they return, they say, let's buy some alcohol because it's much cheaper here. Spain and Portugal, the Portuguese enter Spain with no borders because we are all European Union to purchase what? Cigars. Because cigars in Spain are much, much cheaper for a tax reason than in Portugal. So when a Lisbon person that likes to smoke Cuban cigars wants to purchase cigars, which are expensive, always call some Spanish friend, are you visiting or are you going to Madrid for some reason? Return to me with a case of 25 cigars, which cost a lot. But even costing a lot, cost less than in Lisbon. So cross-border trade has existed always, but it was unimportant. It was important in the border, but other than that, people were not talking about cross-border trade all the time. Only the neighbors of those places knew that this trade existed. Probably it happens in Croatia also, because you will have in the borders with another country some specific cross-border trade, I'm sure. Maybe because the gasoline for the cars is 20 cents different. And then in the other side, drivers decide to drive to a gas station in the other side of the border because the gas there is cheaper. This type of thing. So this was unimportant. Okay? So, very local between two borders. Cross-border trade was also tourism. I mean, when a tourist visits Croatia, like I mentioned before starting the course that I wanted to do this summer, if I can, what I will do there? Enjoying the country, drinking wine in the country, visiting places, eating, and spending money. So this is some sort of border trade that you should not confuse to duty-free, because duty-free is another type of trade that makes me always say that the #1 country in trade in alcoholic drinks, the name is duty-free, and actually it's accounted to a country called duty-free. I'm serious. So it's very local and was done before, this cross-border trade through catalogs. Someone likes fishing, is a fanatic of fishing, and want to buy a rod for fishing that is only made in New Zealand. Years ago, the only solution for that person that wanted all his life to have the rod for fishing made by some remote producer in New Zealand, the only way to purchase was to have catalogs and receive a postal parcel. Okay? Then when internet started, we all remember, well, the young people maybe don't, that there were websites standalone. The company, still in Europe, is like this. The company A has my website, whatever, dot, which doesn't exist in China. In China, there are no independent websites. There are platforms. And nobody, not even Zara, which is a company of my country, they have its own website and they sell zero. They sell in their own website within a platform. Okay? So cross-border was not a big deal years ago. But what is the change? Why are we talking today? Cross-border trade was not a big deal. Well, because it's not cross-border trade anymore. Is cross-border trade with this thing in the middle. And this is what really makes the change. This did not exist before. Why? Because we could claim we have an independent website, but we were unable to deliver to a person that was 3,000 kilometers away. Logistics did not know how to do this. The postal people did know, but the rest of the world, until platforms like the most known is Amazon for you, for in Europe, although Amazon is 1% in China. I'm serious, 1 or 2%. So here in Europe, everyone talks about Amazon, or in US, but in China, Amazon is nothing. Okay? So this is the keyword that changed everything. Why? Why change everything adding only this e-commerce thing here? Because suddenly it became massive. Via what? Not via the websites of the company. They were unable to deliver something to the other side of the world. It was the online marketplaces where in Europe we know Amazon, but in China they have 20 or 25 or 50, that big. They became massive. So when they became massive, the producers suddenly started reaching consumers everywhere, which that didn't happen before. Before we have a person collecting something and very interested in exchanging letters with the producer in Oregon, in United States, because I want to have this special small thing, I'm a collector, but this was a minor thing. And now we see people that you need a shirt and you purchase a shirt immediately and you don't know, but that shirt is made somewhere in China. And it comes because you have seen this in AliExpress, which is one of those online marketplaces, or in DHgate, or in Jolly Good, because there are, in Europe, some of them are known, but there are tens and tens and tens of platforms. There is one called Jolly Good with success in the Middle East and in Russia. And in Europe, so far, no. But they sell a lot. So this change of the producers reaching consumers everywhere is what made cross-border trade a big thing. Created a problem because suddenly the postal tariffs do not work as thought. The postal tariffs were thought for something different. The postal tariffs were thought. We were at postals. I'm not sure if I have to repeat because with this, well, the postal tariffs before cross-border e-commerce, they were unbalanced. I mean, what I said is it didn't cost the same to send a parcel or a letter from Washington to Beijing than from Beijing to Washington. Actually, I can tell you that I can send a letter when I lived in China, €1, a letter to my family in Madrid. €1, which is quite cheap. Okay. It's not the same if you try to send from Madrid to Beijing or make the test. So the postal tariffs do not respond to this massive new thing, which is sending parcels and letters and envelopes with things to another country. The governments want more revenue, and they have seen this is a source of new revenue. I want to say that as of July 1st, there is every single thing arriving into European Union, even things that were below €22 and didn't have to pay anything, now they will pay VAT as of 1st of July, even if it's the smallest cost thing. Why? Because this was not important in the past. However, now it's massive. So they will have VAT. All right? At the same time, cities, airports, and railways, they said, wow, now we have cargo. But we have cargo coming from Asia or China, but not the normal cargo, a brutal cargo. So the cities are interested in having trains or in having the airport as a cargo hub to receive things, because that is employment, that is paying things, that is very cool, the same as railways. So these are the changes. And on top of that, the consumers noticed that there were platforms, call them AliExpress, JD.com, Jolly Good, DHgate, whatever, Amazon, where you could enter and purchase a cable for your iPhone because your iPhone was broken, the cable, and you could purchase one which actually was made in China and comes from China, and probably cross-border, because it arrives directly to your place. So this is the nature of change in cross-border trade, that now is e-commerce, and you have a cell phone and you order for whenever it's possible this book or this shirt or these boots or this sport thing. So what happened with China with this thing of cross-border e-commerce? Well, China did what they do best, which is they noticed the potential. They took good notes some years ago, and they increased the scale by 1 order of magnitude. Instead of doing this size, they multiply by 10. And this is when all these platforms that now deliver in Europe things that come from China started to appear throughout Europe and throughout everywhere else. Okay? So this took the world by storm, and the consumers. And this is what has created this enormous future for a trade mode that in the past was, let's say, a little bit lateral, not super important. The cross-border trade is the same, but now with the e-commerce put in the middle. Let me say that China is interested in your products in China via cross-border. I will explain why, but if you ask them, the most interesting thing for them is what? Export. Only in 2020, they have something like 25 new platforms on cross-border trade in China. I mean, AliExpress and those type of things. And all of them are thinking about coming to Europe. And this will be for export. But at the same time, you can use the opportunity for selling to consumers from Croatia or from anywhere in European Union or from US. But you will learn with me today that they use cross-border e-commerce for imports for other reasons that I want you to know why they are doing what they are doing. And this will give you confidence and saying, I can't seize this opportunity, but it's not because the Chinese want to give me any gift. It's just because they need it. So you have confidence that this is a type of trade with China that will continue because they need it. And I want to explain you why they need it. Let me just explain the postal tariffs thing. When I do cross-border e-commerce and I send things, maybe I have direct logistics, but I have reverse logistics. What if the client, the consumer, does not like the product? Well, if the difference here in one-way cost and the other is huge, and between some countries is huge, it may happen the following. If I send something to a Chinese consumer and the conditions are, if you do not like, return it, maybe for Chinese consumers to return the product is cheap. But maybe for an American consumer, returning the product to China costs more than the product. So you see the imbalance. Before it was not big deal because it was once in a while. But now there are millions of parcels going back and forth. So this makes a difference. That's one of the reasons why this VAT thing starts 1st of July in the European Union. And every single item is charged with VAT. And we are 1 month from that to be effective. Here you can see the announcement. It was announced a long time ago. I think it will take all the post offices by a storm, but because there are different degrees of being ready for this. There is a digital solution for this problem. Actually, it's an Estonian company which is offering how to solve this problem day one. So if you have this problem, call me and I will give you the contact of the Estonian company. And you can do it digitally to integrate in your systems to be able to collect the VAT anywhere in Europe, no matter where the product enters, and pay to your tax bureau. But this is the reality. The European Union government and every member state wants to collect taxes for every single thing that arrives to European Union. So one question you are surely asking is, what is in all of this for me as a European Union company? Okay, well, let's talk about China. And you are here, you're a European Union company, and you want to export to the Chinese consumer. If you do general trade, I mean, you want to put the kiwis into a container and send that to China. General trade is always full of problems and difficulties. All of them can be solved because we do export. But the reality is that when we export to China, especially if we are a small or medium company, we face complex regulations. We face tariffs. The number one request of every single company in Europe, I need an importer. I need a partner. Yes, if you do general trade, you need in the other side the partner importing your products, right? Which is the number one request. You have difficulties with the language, with the logistics certification. You're doing a cosmetic and they say, no, you cannot sell here in China. Why? Because it's not certified. How long it takes? Well, depends on the cosmetic, but can take very long. And if you do not want to be tested on animals, then no way. This is changing in China. The test on animals is being suppressed. It's an example. So my point is, some products, you had to pass a long time before you could be able to export that to China via general trade. So then China suddenly came with cross-border e-commerce, where the message was more or less, you have problems with general trade to reach the Chinese consumer. With cross-border e-commerce, you don't have problems, okay? All of this, no need, which is a message quite strong, and to be honest, quite difficult to understand. It can be true, because this is the first question I receive also. Listen, I can't believe, are you sure that I can export with no regulations, with no blah, blah, blah? How come? Okay, so I want you to understand why. Because if not, you will always think that this is something temporary, that maybe is a kind of trick. And I want you to be sure that if you do it, why can be done, and the reasons behind for Chinese government. And the reasons behind is Chinese, they see, the government there, they see this different. They see this completely different. In the past, they were tourists across Europe or other places, and they purchased things in the European Union. They went back to China, and they have purchased something for a friend or for the family that previously had given them the money. So let's say only people that could travel could enjoy to have things purchased abroad and brought to China, even if they were not certified. I mean, imagine certain cosmetic, not certified in China. A tourist arrived to European Union, entered in a shop, purchased the cosmetic, paid, put into the luggage, returned to Shanghai and told the friend, I returned from Europe, very nice. I have here at home the cosmetic you wanted. And maybe that cosmetic is not on sale in China. Why? Because the brand didn't certify, so cannot do general trade. And then Chinese, they have a diaspora abroad of millions of people, started doing what is called taiko. Taiko is to make this thing of the tourist a profession. There is people across all European Union countries that live there, can be students, can be residents, that say, I know a lot of people in my country and I'm here. I purchase for them what they ask me to purchase. They trust me. And then I send the product via parcel to China and they pay me there in some account I have there, which is the account of my wife or my brother or my own account. When this is done with just one bottle, it's okay. When it is done massively, and there is Chinese that go every day to the supermarket to purchase things, then it becomes a business. And notice that the Chinese government for this business of the Chinese tourist or the taiko is not getting any money because it comes like letters. Of course, they check in customs, but it's so much that they cannot cope with the enormous size of things coming with the taiko sellers, which are Chinese abroad. So China was seeing this different, and also there was another reason they wanted to do cross-border e-commerce. So the first reason is this is going too much. I mean, the taiko business is we need to pick up taxes from this. Okay, point one. Point two, the reality in China for imported products, believe me, is that there are not much variety in the assortment. You enter a shop in China, there are cities like Shanghai where you can find everything, but in the standard shop in China, you can find one or two or maybe three brands of the same category, not more. And one of them is made in China, the other one is international but made in China, and maybe the third one is international and not made in China. Okay? So the Chinese government realizes that really the options for purchasing of Chinese are not many. Everywhere is the same. There are shops in China that if you go, they look at copycat one from another on the shelf. You go to say, let's go to pick up chips, which I put here. And you find everywhere the same, across all China. And you say, how is this possible? Is this possible? Because if there are few options, then the brands can be very expensive. Maybe not for you as Europeans, but for Chinese, they are expensive. Again, remember, the Chinese government wants the consumers to spend money, to upgrade the consumption. But if they only have three options and they are expensive, the Chinese consumer says, yes, my friend, I would like to buy these chips, but I cannot afford at these prices to spend this money every day. And partly is because there is no competition on the shelf. Only big multinationals are selling in China, and the Chinese government wanted more products to make more competition and to make the prices go down. This is what they want cross-border e-commerce for the consumers. And also because it was a kind of bad comparison for Chinese that only the people that had the money to travel could come back with products found abroad. This created this political system they have, some unrest, because it looks like there are two types of citizens, those that can enjoy to buy nice things in Europe when they come, or US, and those that they do not have the money to pay planes to visit Europe, they do not have access to purchase the nice things. Actually, this is why the taiko was born, because people satisfy this need. So this created some unrest, and the Chinese government is a regime with this political option. So they are very careful about anything that can sound like unrest between the people. So they try to make more options available on the shelf. And finally, the taiko was so massive that they were having no tax revenue, the government, on this massive business, and they won. So this is why Some time ago, the Chinese created this cross-border e-commerce thing. Before it was like this, still it is, but much less now, because they offer the consumer that, for instance, instead of a EU shop and then a plane and then to the Chinese consumer, here the European Union company can sell cross-border directly to the consumer. But for that, they needed to do this as easy as this. The guy that brought in the luggage a cosmetic, maybe the cosmetic did not have any certification in China, purchased, paid, and gave to his friend or her friend in Beijing. They wanted to do the same. If this same cosmetic, the EU company is here and is going to this Chinese consumer in Beijing, there will be no need for certification here in the cross-border process. That is why I say China looks into this in a different way for their own reason, which I hope you understood. This sounds like a massive loophole. I mean, your question in your mind will be, if they can do this, why they don't import absolutely everything through cross-border e-commerce? Because you are telling me that no certification, no problems in customs, the tariffs and taxes are much lower. How is this possible? Then there is a massive loophole. Every single Chinese consumer could be importing whatever they wanted and forgetting about problems. Well, Chinese government is not stupid. There is a limit per year to what the Chinese consumer can spend purchasing this way. So they have a clear limit. Even if the 1.4 billion Chinese would go to the upper limit of what they can spend, that would be 20 billion. 20 billion in the whole trade of China is a drop in the ocean. So they are not concerned by that. On top of that, before purchasing a Chinese consumer anything via cross-border e-commerce, uses the cell phone. And the cell phone archives, it's complicated, but I tell you, it happens how much you have spent this year, and when you arrive to the limit, it says you cannot purchase more until next year because you have reached the limit. This is not a problem socially. Why? Because if I live in Beijing and my limit is reached, what should I do? In my office, I turn to my colleague and I say, Laura, do you have money yet to spend on the cross-border e-commerce? And Laura says, yes, I usually don't buy many things. Okay, buy this for me and I pay you. So it's easy to solve for the Chinese consumer. But in total, the country has a limit. So they can be confident that this is not a loophole. So no problem. How they do this? They do this through the free trade zone, which is the last topic of today. This picture you see here is from 1980, so it's 40 years ago, in Shannon. Shannon is the first free trade zone of the world, created, I think it was 1960, so like 60 years ago, no, 70 years ago. I put the picture always because this gentleman here is Mr. Jiang Zemin, that you may not know, but became later chairman of China. Like now is Mr. Xi Jinping. This guy in the 80s became, or much later, after much later, but was much younger here. So at that time, he was visiting the Shannon Free Trade Zone because they wanted to learn about free trade zone. So you notice they look far, and now we're talking 40 years later about the Chinese free trade zone. So this is just to show you that this studying this started for Chinese much before. So how many free trade zones they have so far? They have 21 in all these cities, which cover most of the East. Not all are equal. In size, yes, except Shanghai, which is very big now, but the others are all 25 square kilometers or 24. When I say not all are equal, is because they want the free trade zones to be with some degree of specialization, and I will explain why. Why the free trade zones are what for? Understanding this is key. To make the regional growth to go up. So if I put in Henan province, in Zhengzhou, a free trade zone, the goal will be air logistics and has to create employment and has to grow the GDP there, basically for air logistics. It's not that it's forbidden any other thing, but they want that special area to be focused on this topic. The same that the ones in the Southeast, the focus will be trading with Southeast Asia. So in principle, they have some degree of specialization. That does not mean that they cannot do other things, but the government wants to put the free trade zone in places to specialize in something. The idea is to boost general trade, okay? But remember, they will accept your imports, but they are much more interested in their own export. I mean, because they know AliExpress, DHgate, Jolly Good, JD.com, all these platforms export a lot to Europe and to US and Australia, etc. So they have an interest on this and makes sense. Boost also processing trade. An example, where is Tesla company installed now since recently in China, in the Shanghai Free Trade Zone? Why? Because creating the company there is cheaper, is faster. They can move money much more easily. So the free trade zone saying, I offer here to you all these things, helps Tesla to get up, to create a new factory there, which they did, where we can think those cars made in China, Tesla, Model S3, I believe, is for Chinese. No. Yes, they are for Chinese, of course. But they are for Germans also. I mean, just recently there was one of those ships bringing, I don't know, 20,000 S3 models to Europe and to Germany. So they boost processing trade. They have attracted investment. Tesla makes the car there, and when they are made, some of them are sold in China, but some others are re-exported. So this is one of the key reasons for these free trade zones: attract investment. Okay, so you may ask, what is different than if I am in the zone or if I am outside the zone? What is there any different? Well, if you visit Shanghai Free Trade Zone, you will not feel yourself any different. You drive with your car, you arrive to one place, you say, welcome to Free Trade Zone, but the life there looks as normal like before entering the Free Trade Zone. The situation is that certain customs regulations are different inside the Free Trade Zone. They are much more soft. The negative list, I mean, the number of business scopes that you can have. Some business scope, you will not be tolerated to do it, let's say outside the free trade zone. But in the free trade zone, they allow you. So why a company would like, for instance, to be in the free trade zone? Imagine Facebook. Facebook, you all know, is forbidden in China, right? However, they have an office and big. Where? In the Shanghai Free Trade Zone. Why? How come? If Facebook is forbidden, how come they have a company with 1,000 employees in the free trade zone? What do they do? I tell you what they do. The Chinese companies are huge. So they make publicity, right? If they make publicity, they want to sell to whom? To Chinese? No, they want to sell to people outside China. And people outside China, what do they use? Facebook. So they need to do advertising, right? Yes, so Chinese companies need advertising in Facebook. So Facebook is not outside the zone, because the business scope publicity not allowed, but in the zone it's allowed. And they sell the service to whom? To the Chinese companies that want that in your Facebook appears some advertising saying, we do have this nice, whatever, made in China that are so nice and so cheap. So the negative list can be shorter into the free trade zone. The administrative procedures are much more professional, quicker and faster than in the regular customs or outside the zone, to create a bank account, to clear customs, etc. I have seen for people to clear 500 different SKUs at free trade zone in 1 hour. If you do this in the normal customs, it would take you 1 week. But they want to facilitate this because they want a quick movement. And you may think, is this the gift they give to me? Well, it's not a gift, because it will be useful for you as a exporter here. But remember that they want to do more export than import. So they are also using this thing, like the Tesla thing, that this new Tesla that is running on German autobahns now, very probably is made in the free trade zone in Shanghai. All right? And also, one, if not the most important thing, the currency. The yuan cannot be converted, does not float. It has a fixed exchange dictated every day at 9 a.m. Beijing time with a certain gap by China. So sending money abroad is a pain in the neck. First, there are some limits. Second, to convert your yuan into euros or dollars, pain in the neck. The bank has to check. You have to ask SAFE, which is administrative body, for permission. Takes a lot. In this area, this thing is made much more easy. So this is one of the main reasons to use free trade zone for some companies, maybe not for you, or maybe yes. And finally, there are 21 pilot zones, and still they have the name pilot. And pilot is, I told you before, because they want to cross the river to use the Deng Xiaoping. They say it's from Deng Xiaoping. I think it's just an old Chinese saying. But anyway, that crossing the river by filling the stones. I mean, let's make a test first. They are testing the waters and what could be a more open economy. So that's why they are creating this free trade zone across the country. So one of the free trade zones, which was mentioned here, is Beijing. And I told you that they have some degree of specialization, okay? Well, one I recommend to follow, even if you are not exporting now, as a country, as a member state, is there is now a free trade zone for services. And that free trade zone is Beijing. And we in Europe, we do not have in the member state big factories, except some countries. But we could export services, and more important, digital services. So some of our digital services, the place to be to deliver that digital service, like Facebook is delivering a digital service from the free trade zone to the Chinese companies, because an advertising is a digital service. Pay attention that the Chinese government wants Beijing to be the specialist in trade in services, and Europeans are very good exporting service. To finish and see your questions, let me go through the procedure, which is, at least today, you will go with a clear idea of what is the procedure. Imagine you have cosmetics in the European Union. This is your company, okay? So the procedure, the flow of the goods is those cosmetics will be sent to some bonded warehouse in the free trade zone, which is in one of those 21 places. Usually Europeans prefer Shanghai or the one in Guangdong. Okay, so now the cosmetics are not here. Remember that this cosmetic is not certified in China. So you could not do general trade. You could not send a container with this because it would never clear customs. They will ask you for the certification. You don't have, the container cannot enter. But you can send to a bonded warehouse in the free trade zone. And then you have a consumer that they will see online platforms in China, in Chinese, saying, dear consumer, we have cross-border this cosmetic here. And the consumer says, oh, my friend in Paris says this cosmetic is very good and actually it's not sold in China, but I have it through the cross-border. So it orders the cosmetic and arrives to the consumer. It gets out of the bonded warehouse and arrives to the consumer. So we have completed the flow of goods from the European Union, first to the bonded warehouse where you keep a stock. You need a minimum stock, not much at the beginning, but because if not, if you have sent one by one. But in the bonded warehouse, they do not pay taxes, which are much lower until this person orders. So while they are in the bonded warehouse, they don't pay any tax. And the tax for this consumer is much lower. You want to know the flow of payments, because if you send from here to Chinese consumer, you want to be paid. Of course, this is the flow of payment. The consumer pays in yuan. He probably doesn't even know that we're talking about cross-border. He knows there is a platform he trusts, can be a WeChat shop, or can be JD.com, or can be one of the international Chinese platforms that do cross-border e-commerce. And there are even for medicines. They order in Chinese and pay in yuan. This arrives to the platform and the logistic operator that guarantees that the little taxes that have to be paid are collected. The government tells this logistic operator, you collect the taxes, because if you don't collect, what will happen? You will lose your license, and no logistic operator in China will take the risk to cheat the government. That I guarantee you, impossible. Impossible, because if they lose the license for the whole country, they are in broke. It's worse than going to jail. They lose everything. So here there is a currency exchange, because this has been paid in yuan, into dollars or yens or euros, which happens quickly, not like 3 months or 3 weeks in a bank in Shanghai street, filling papers and convincing them that you have a contract to send 1,000 euros. This happens quickly. And then finally, this money is sent to the bank account of the company in Europe or in the United States. So let me repeat. Let's see the flow of goods. Goods are in Europe. Even if they do not have certification, the company puts there into a bonded warehouse in some logistic operator. Okay, they are no longer in Europe. You put a pallet. There are consumers that they are publicized, and you need to reach the consumer, but this is also the task of the online platforms in China. And they tell you, I have this. And this consumer says, I want that. Purchases. And the logistic operator delivers directly to the consumer. So at the end, it's going from here to here. This for the flow of goods. For the flow of payments, the consumer pays in yuan and doesn't care about foreign currency. There is a conversion of currency quickly at the free trade zone. And finally, the money arrives to the bank account of the company in the European Union. This combines with tricks of the Chinese, which are legal. Let me explain one trick. The word is not trick because it's fully legal. Imagine this is a shop. Remember that cross-border is direct to the consumer. So how come, if it's direct to the consumer, I enter into a shop and I can see cross-border e-commerce products brought from abroad? This is contradictory, Rafa, right? Because you're telling me this has to go direct to the consumer. And now I enter this shop and I can see product. But this is not true. I mean, what I can see here are the samples of the product. So imagine I have put this cosmetic before Okay, I agree with the owner of this shop. We will put a sample here with a QR code, and we will tell the consumer this sample is not for sale in this shop. But if you scan the QR code, you will get at home directly. And because this has been sold at the shop, the owner of the shop will receive some percentage from the brand. So actually you can find cross-border products in shops. It's not the product of that shop, but it's the QR code of that shop. So this is not common in Shanghai because people order cross-border, but in second or third tier cities, people want to touch the product. So they go to one of those cross-border shops, they touch the product, they say, this is what I want. And then they say, I want to pay. No, you need to order. And how the shop gets the money? Because the QR code is linked to the shop, so the brand knows I have to pay a commission to the shop. So it works. This is all from my side. Now time for questions, Laura. So I'm not sure if we have questions.
Thank you very much, Rafa. Yes, we do have questions. Before running into them, I will just like to thank you again for making yourself available for today. Apologies again for the technical issue. Luckily, we didn't face it again. From my side, I believe that the learnings from today's session are really quite a lot. But I will stick to those that you mentioned. I will start with the last one, actually, that seems interesting, and it's how actually cross-border e-commerce is combined with the brick and mortar shops, allowing the products to have more visibility in China. Again, it's a little bit tricky because it seems like the product is on the store, but the product you're purchasing, even if you are at the store, is actually in the free trade zone, and in some cases it arrives into the hands of the consumer in few minutes or in 30 minutes or 1 hour. Another thing interesting that you mentioned is about the bonded warehouse and the importance of having a stock there, because obviously consumers appreciate quite a lot the speed, and this is most importantly for China. That it also means that ordering products that are still in Europe will take quite a long time to arrive, while the ones that are in the free trade zone might make it to the final consumer pretty fast. There is a question actually in regards to the type of products, the fast consumer goods that could be ideally sold through cross-border e-commerce. You mentioned cosmetics. Are there any other fast consumer goods that you would recommend that are really suitable for this model?
It works differently. I would suggest first, the list is changed every year. So I'm sure the EU SME Centre has the latest list. It is ordered by HS code. So, and it's in digital format, it's a PDF. You don't need, it's in Chinese, but you don't need it to speak Chinese. If you ask the EU SME Centre, they will send to you, and you know the HS code of your product. You say, I sell beer. Beer is 03. Let's go through the list. I don't know what it says here in Chinese, but 03, okay, 03, so I can export beer via free trade zone. So there are thousands and thousands of, the list is 300 pages. Fortunately, it's sorted by HS code, so you can find out if your product, and can be very complex products. We think consumption, but consumers purchase very complex things. They can buy a bicycle, maybe, which costs money. So I can't predict exactly what could be, because that depends on if you approach to sell you directly with your own logistics in China, or you start talking with platforms that they do the bonded thing for you. All the big consolidators, the AliExpress, the Alibaba, the Tmall, the Didi, they have the cross-border version, the Yihaotian. So they might have interest in have some of your things into the bonded warehouse they have. So go to the list, identify your business, identify your HS code, and say, wow, this, at least I know I can test the waters, selling direct to consumers in China. And it's a way to test the waters for you. You don't need so far to open the company. You can make a test, and instead of looking for an importer, realize that here you do not need an importer. It is the platform that will store there. And you need to get an agreement with the platform. They will make some money, of course, because they are there to help you, but also to make their own business, or the logistics company.
Thank you very much, Rafa. You mentioned before about the specialization of the different bounded zones or free trade zones. Is there, of course, depending on the product you're selling, you might have to choose one or the other just to maximize the output. But is there any consideration to the geographical location of those free trade zones?
Yes, because maybe for European Union, you can choose, let's say, the two in Guangdong or Shanghai. But if we're talking about a person in Singapore, Laura, or in Thailand, maybe they're interested in other areas, because the flow will be between Southeast Asia and the southeast of China. So imagine you are doing, what's the name of that fruit that Chinese like so much, which is made in Thailand? I can't remember now the name.
Durian?
Okay, durian. Imagine you can sell durian in nice basket directly from Thailand to Chinese consumers when the celebrations, they have Chinese New Year or whatever holidays, which is normal to give fruit as a gift. And this is expensive. So you might want, someone in Thailand might want to package very nicely the best durian in the world, and consumers purchase. But that would be probably not a trade with Shanghai, but instead a trade with the free trade zone closer to Thailand, which is in the southeast. So that varies also from where you're making the business. I would start with Shanghai as a general rule, but you need to do your research.
Indeed, thank you very much. There is another question about Daigou. Is it considered illegal in Europe?
Well, in Europe, there is nothing illegal in the sense that if I go to the supermarket next to my home, and instead of purchasing 1 liter of something, I purchase the whole shelf, 100 liters, well, the first day the supermarket will be happy. The second day will say, who's this guy? Okay, and I'm sending to China. So in principle, it's not illegal, but actually, sooner or later, someone will say you are making a business of this. So where are you getting this money? It could be more a tax thing for the person in Europe, because if you are purchasing a lot of things and sending, where do you get the money? No, I get my money in China. You make your money in China, but you work here in Europe. You need to pay taxes here in Europe, my friend, because if you live more than 6 months. So in principle, it's not illegal, but it's descending at very high speed, because when you can do cross-border, you lose interest in trusting friends abroad. Where I live now, there are some Chinese doing Taiko because the Baltics have amber. You know, amber is it's a mineral with this one that has some insects inside, and you can make some nice, it's not top jewelry, but cost money. So they are purchasing here the earrings in amber and sending to people in China. If they make a percentage of this, maybe you pay your monthly expenses or the rent at the college or something like that. If you do bigger scale, maybe you make real money. China monitors now that. So if you enter you have chances, they open your luggage and they say, explain this. And if you receive a parcel, You live in Beijing, you receive a parcel, chances are that you receive a notice from customs saying, this was stopped, you need to come here to explain. And then you pay taxes. So this is the way they have made massive purchasing abroad and getting revenue.
Thank you very much. There is another question related to the flow of goods and money you mentioned before, how the cosmetics enter the bonded warehouse and then they just go to the consumer. This question is especially focused on the applicable taxes, where actually the money in Europe gets the money from, the company in Europe gets the money from the free trade zone.
Yes, before sending to you the money, I mean, the price for the consumer includes all taxes. So you need to talk, the logistic platform do not care about what price you want to put. They say, you put whatever. On top of that, we will put the taxes that the Chinese government says, which are much lower, are 70% for VAT on the street, no consumer tax. So it's much cheaper, okay? And it is a responsibility of, let's say, the logistic operator to deduct the tax and to pay. So you will receive the net, okay? If you are selling directly to the consumer, if it's done through a platform, you forget about everything. The platform pay you and the platform takes care of everything. But you could open a WeChat shop, your own, and hire a logistic operator to do this on your own. But this is another story that deserves a full day to explain. So you receive the net agreed and also discounted the cost of delivery, okay? The cost of delivery you can manage. The logistic operator can say, as long as you pay me, I don't care what cost of delivery you put, because you might want to manage the cost of delivery. Imagine, Laura, that I want to say, if you purchase 3 units, I don't charge to you the delivery. So maybe the consumer says, oh, this is very cool. I will buy 3 for my sister and someone else. Well, you can put that, but the logistic company says, well, I don't mind if you put that. I will do for you. I will deliver 3 units actually, but I need to be paid. So you can manage the way you want your cost of logistics. You can tell the consumer, I will not charge you, but you will have to pay the logistic company. A logistic company think that usually there are 100 cities in China, which mean 800 million people. And the logistic companies there guarantee 2 days delivery max in those 100 cities, max. So if you have in the free trade zone in Shanghai something, that can be in Chengdu, which is 1,000 kilometers away, next day. So because Chinese consumers want the speed. They cannot, as you said before, they cannot wait 2 weeks to receive something from Europe. For that, they prefer Taiko. Okay. I see more questions.
Yes, actually, I was reading one of them. One of the questions or the comments you mentioned before about the fact that the bonded warehouses or the free trade zones are a testing field for the Chinese government about how things might evolve or what actually companies might do in those free trade zones with that level of freedom. Do you foresee at some point the possibility that those, let's say, the activities allowed in those trade zones are expanded nationwide in China?
Well, I'm not in China now, as you know, Laura, but every year we receive or we help the European Union Chamber of Commerce to compile their request for Chinese government in the annual meeting of the chamber. I always put the same, when the pilot zones will be not pilot anymore. And the answer was very Chinese, was at the right time. So I don't know.
Mama lie.
Yeah, exactly. That's the expression. That's the expression. When it's convenient.
Indeed, indeed. Hopefully sooner than later, but let's see.
My point is that when people asked me years ago, they don't believe, oh, this might be temporary. Why they do this? You see, they have reasons to keep the cross-border thing. Okay, because many Chinese would like to have things that they maybe don't want to travel 8,000 kilometers to buy, but still they want to have those things. So the Chinese government really is, I would say, committed, but maybe not because they are very good. Or, well, no, the governments, you know, they have an intention, which I expect clearly, which is export. And then, of course, consumption upgrade, because if people want to drink some mineral water from Croatia or Estonia, and the only two mineral waters they find in the shops is the Italian one and the French one, it looks like very limited choices, right? I see the water from the French and the water from the Italians. There are more mineral waters. They are very good, these Italian and French waters, but I'm sure in Croatia there are fantastic mineral waters. In Estonia we have. And then the price is very high. If it's not very high, then it's made in China. Because there are international brands that they manufacture in China, okay, or in Indonesia. There are sometimes nice cookies, very famous from a European country, that are super cheap, and you can find them everywhere in any convenience store in China. And you say, how come? Because the brand is from Europe, but the factory is in Indonesia. So.
Okay. We have two last questions very quickly. Do you have examples of logistic operators, those who only do logistics, no, those that actually are part of the e-commerce platforms?
Oh, yes. But for that, it's easy to get, because all these companies, logistics they have the free trade zone company, because you need to register your company there, not yours in Croatia, the logistic operator. So all of them, you just call them and you say, would you do this service for me? They say, no, no. They say, yes, you have one. But you will find 150 or more. So it depends what you want to do. I recommend, when do you do this thing, Laura, with the European Union SME Centre, the pavilion?
The China International Industrial Fair. It's from the 14th of September to the 18th.
And that will be where, Shanghai?
Yes.
I would recommend, I just say, maybe a visit to the free trade zone would be good for the participants, because they present, you go there and they present to you, they want to sell you the services of the free trade zone. They have a boss that says, we need more companies. So if you ask, tell me logistics operators that can do this for me, the boss of the free trade zone will bring to you a list with 100. So a visit, Laura, and it's a very nice visit. I've been there many times, I can tell you.
Indeed, indeed. This is a good idea. Thank you very much, Rafa. And the last question, very briefly. Good, is the same person who was actually asking about the taxes when bringing the money from the free trade zone back to Europe. This person is asking if the European countries will be, or the government of the European countries where the money is received, will they be charging taxes to this income?
No, because you are doing an export. You do the export and you do not pay VAT, because the last person that pays VAT in European Union legislation, okay, is the exporter. So the exporter has paid for all the goods, but now does not do. So it's for European Union, it's legal, it's like a normal export. You have this pallet. We do not care if you send to a bonded warehouse in Shanghai Free Trade Zone or to a warehouse in the normal customs of Shanghai. You do exactly the same. When you receive the money, you have been paid for an export. That's it. The same that if you have been paid for a container, you do your paperwork similar.
Okay, thank you very much, Rafa, and thank you also very much to the participants for staying with us for these 2 hours. One last quick reminder, once you close this session, you will be invited to participate in a satisfaction survey. We would like to know your insight about today's topic, about our performance, and most importantly, we want to know what other China-related topics you would like to learn about. And this input is extremely important for us to refine upcoming events. So I will encourage you to take 3 minutes, that is the time it takes to complete the survey, and do that for us. Without further ado, I would like to thank again also the Croatian Chamber of Economy and Enterprise Estonia as well as our supporter today. And for the rest, I hope to see you again in upcoming events.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you very much.
Thank you, Rafael.
Hopefully I will Croatia soon.
Yeah, I'll send you an email, no worries.
Ciao.
See you soon. Bye.
See you very soon. Bye.